Good morning.
Good morning.
Good to see you all. How lovely. Come on in. There's room somewheres. Chairs and cushions. And if you're joining us online, good to see you. Just inviting you to take stock of how large your awareness is. At this moment, you're hearing sounds. Some kind of sound in here that we're hearing that's quite distant. Seeing stuff. The sky. You can't even measure how far you're seeing when you see the sky because it doesn't have a boundary. And of course, everything we've seen is a reflection of light from like 93 million miles away. So that's nice. You're pretty good at having a vast, spacious awareness, whether you know it or not. I think. So I have a title for the talk today, which is Cultivating Compassion. So the basic idea of Buddhism is that we can develop our capacity to be compassionate. Like farmers, you plant seeds and then something happens. There's a drought. Frustrating. Well, next season, plant seeds again. Oh, there's a flood. Oh, frustrating. Next season, plant seeds again. You get some rain, you get some water, you get some fruit. We keep planting, cultivating. Basic, pervasive symbolism in Buddhism. So I have this idea here that a spacious sense of compassion, which is not like having the same feeling as other people or anything, but just the ability to be close to suffering, is motivating. It helps us to like do things that are conducive to people, other people, and ourselves being free from suffering, all of us. And it also is conducive to being non-reactive enough to do that in a way that is helpful without burning out. You know, sometimes we get close to suffering, we're just getting very emotionally reactive ourselves, and then it becomes really exhausting. And that can be part of the story, but we can develop the ability to be really close to suffering without any barrier, without any need to control, without any need to react, but just to be there. Part of why I'm talking about this is just kind of related to my Dharma talk I gave a couple weeks ago called How to Engage in Social Transformation. And that was really, some premises of that talk were came out of like a meeting we had where a lot of people came and talked about like, how can we engage in social transformation? And we were talking about, you know, doing political activism or social organizing and things like that. Because a lot of people seem to be really worried right now because there seems to be such an upsurge in exploitation, racism, patriarchy, attacks on transgender and other LGBT people. That's a lot of harm coming, and so people are like, oh, I want to do something. So we had that great meeting, and then I thought, well, let's just keep talking about this. And you know, one of the premises of the talk I gave is the question is how, because in any moment, if anything exists, it's already engaged in social transformation. So everything is always changing. There's no such thing as a fixed social situation. Every instant, there's transformation happening. So that really the question is, and we're always part of it. So we can't not be part of it. It's not an option. Even if you go, oh, I'm just going to go live in the woods in the Yukon and farm. That's actually a social act that has impact. So you can't get out of it. So then the question is how? And then that's wonderful because the options are vast and unlimited, right? So many different kinds of things people do. And I'm emphasizing here the ones they do that I think are we hope are helpful and conducive to liberation from suffering, although people do things that are harmful, for sure. But anyway, then using the Buddhist analysis, we come down to the fact that one of the most powerful things we can do if we want to engage in social transformation is to develop our capacity for compassion, which is deeply tied to the idea of nonviolence and non-harming in Buddhist tradition. Responding to the suffering of the world with something helpful. And here, just emphasizing, today, now it's like, last time the talk was all about like all the myriad, unbelievable array of things people can do, and how we can learn from that and be inspired by it. This is now like, now we're going to talk about a very root, fundamental practice for how to do this, which is to cultivate compassion. So here, I want to be clear, I'm not talking about compassion as an emotion. Compassion is just the capacity to be with suffering. So in a lot of ways, it's actually like not an emotion. It's a non-emotion. Because if like someone's really angry and then I get really angry too, I'm with them, but I'm so busy being angry, I don't have as much time to really see them. Or if someone is really sad and I become scared, I don't want to be near that. It's too painful. I sort of withdraw. You know, that reactivity is a busyness of consciousness or an occupation of what I am doing that can kind of make it harder for really to be there. So having said that, of course, I and everyone I know has all kinds of reactivities. So the idea isn't like, we're going to leap beyond that or get rid of that or something. Everything I'm going to say about is not about getting rid of something. It's about a particular kind of capacity that we can develop. So this is just one channel of how we can be, which is the ability to just be really close to suffering. And that's it, just like a space. The way to think about this is like it's like you have a baby that's crying, and to just be able to like, I'm here. And if I'm like, I'm here, and you're driving me crazy, and I just want you to shut up, which anyone who's had a baby has experienced, I think. Please stop, because it's hard, right? But and that's okay. That's part of the deal. Then I could be like, they're suffering here. It's me being frustrated and exhausted. But then with that, or as part of that, or sometimes without that, we can also just see that crying. And that's a powerful position for being like, what would be helpful here? What would be helpful here? And when we see our own angst in that situation, what would be helpful here? There's two people. They both need care. If you give yourself a bottle, that might be a little weird. So, like this line from James Baldwin, we are capable of bearing a great burden once we realize the burden is reality and arrive where reality is. So the nice thing about what I'm talking about is you can do this and it's not a burden. It might appear to have been a burden to like be with suffering. And then you realize I can just be with it and I'm not lifting it. I'm not carrying it. I'm not doing anything to it. It's just here. And I'm just noticing and caring without doing something to it. So in that position, it's kind of like, although he says we're capable of bearing the burden, really what we see is it is not a burden. but it is real. And this leads me to kind of uh, basically, from a Buddhist perspective, we're always with all the suffering in the whole world, whether we know it or not. We're mostly ignoring the vast majority of it. But since we're inescapably bound to each other, we cannot be separate from any of the suffering anywhere. So we spend most of our time ignoring or not being aware. And we can actually learn to just be more aware through practice. But this ties this Baldwin because he's saying this is about seeing reality, seeing what's here. It's just like being with what's real. I have this little line here from Bell Hooks, which I think is in the bulletin for today, which is the choice to love is a choice to connect, to find ourselves in the other. And here, this can really point towards one of the basic ideas in Buddhism is to try and be able to see not just in our normal way that there's individuals and they have names and they're doing specific things and they have their tendencies, to also just see everything is just a web of causes and conditions. And we are not separate within that. So like everybody, I think, experiences aversion at some time. Maybe not. If you don't, I'd love to hear about what that's like. Or desire. These are considered kind of the root causes of suffering, wanting things to be other than how they are. And so we can connect deeply in this vision of love, which Hooks likes to talk about, by seeing that we all are within this connected web that includes suffering. And you might be like, why are you dwelling on suffering? Because that's the topic for today. Yeah, come back in the morning. I'll be dwelling on joy. That'll be irritating too. So this ability to kind of see underneath all the ideas we have about why the suffering is occurring or who it is or anything, and just see it's like, this is just sadness. Or you look in yourself and you're like, this is just exhaustion or rage or envy. Ooh, we don't want to talk about that one. To be able to see that, if it's here, whether it's what you would consider to be yours or someone else's, it's all something that can be known. Like now, just see it. So all this is about caring, but I'm not using the language of care, which I often use, because I'm trying to evoke this sense of how spacious and sort of neutral and open this can be. It doesn't mean that then when this happens, like if you are perceiving suffering, that you don't do anything. You could do anything. You could say something really kind and warm. You could give someone a hug. You could just give them space. If you're sad, you can go for a walk. You can lie down. If there's a horrible injustice, you can take political action. All these things are wonderful expressions of what can emerge from this direct seeing and being able to be close. So it's not about ignoring differences and the particularities and the stories, but it is about being able to also get completely underneath and just see the very root of the suffering. So I'm spending a good portion of this weekend, the bulk of the weekend, coordinating a very small team of chaplains at George Floyd Square for the fifth annual Rise and Remember Memorial for George Floyd. And, our role is pretty ill-defined. It's just like, just go and be present. And I thought, well, what are we doing here? But the bringing chaplains in this way into the George Floyd Square has been happening for about 5 years. It was really originally organized by Reverend Dr. Kelly Sherman Conroy, who's a indigenous Christian reverend. And she just started organizing a big team of people who had chaplaincy training, which at the bottom is really chaplaincy training is a lot of things, but a big one is just being able to sit with people when they're suffering, when they're dying, when they're very ill, and just to be able to be there. And people at the square realize we just need people to come here and be able to just be that. And that will help. That can be a part of what we're doing. It's deeply tied also to a totally different group, the BIPOC Sanghas for Direct Action, that would bring, it's been a few years, but just bring a whole bunch of people to come meditate at George Floyd Square. And in related work, as some of you know, and you'll hear in a few minutes, Reverend Dr. Gia Star Brown and I will be leading meditation events in George Floyd Square for the first 6 Saturdays of the summer. Be great to come by. It's just part of the work, and kind of a basis that can create a healthy infrastructure for how we live. Because like I spent a huge amount of my life trying to avoid my own suffering through having like really dramatic relationship conflicts and drug addiction. Now I just use my phone. Oh God, tired. This is a funny video of a wombat. Honey, have you seen this wombat video? Well, I need a wombat video now and again, you know. But this is a very pervasive tendency, right? And I just found that Zazen for me, as much as anything, was just about being able to tolerate and get close to my own experience, which thankfully now is, I'm just being honest, it's very pleasant. I like my experience most of the time. But when I came here, I did not. I really did not want to be in my life that much. And I just learned to just be with it, be with it. And then I realized that whatever comes up can be there in the space of awareness and be seen. And I can care about it and take actions that are helpful, hopefully. So this is completely the phenomena of suffering we're talking about. Is like whether it's internal or external, it's not really the question. And whether the reason for the suffering, we deem it appropriate or not, is not the question at all in this case. We're looking to see through all of that and just come down. This is a human being. This is an animal. This is a plant. Can I see something about how it is? I have no idea whether flowering trees are happy in the spring, but I'm willing to just be like, I bet they're excited. I'm excited about spring. I feel it in my body. I'm just an organism. It's not that different. I move around way too much. I'm a lot less pretty. And yet, here we are, just something emerging from the earth, with the earth, of the earth, as the earth. So I'd like to now move. We're going to spend a pretty substantial amount of time this morning doing some meditation practice. So I'm going to do, I'm going to guide us through a Tonglen practice, which is a very ancient traditional Tibetan practice for cultivating compassion. And sometimes it's called giving and receiving. And sometimes people will do a lot of time framing Tonglen. I did most of the framing I'm going to do. But basically this will involve turning, like using our imagination to recall some suffering and then practicing being close to it. But having said that, you know, you might be like, dang, I got enough, Ben. I don't want any more of that this morning. My tolerance is met. And that's okay. That's good to discern. So if, like I say, think about something that's difficult, you can think about like, oh, I was kind of annoyed that I ran out of peanut butter, instead of, something that's going to just make you horribly activated. You really want to be careful with yourself. This is not about leaping into a fire. This is about just kind of opening up with some care. And yeah, if all the imagining and taking things in doesn't seem right to you, you can just sit and breathe and listen to the sounds, rest in awareness that's here. So the structure of this is generally that we're going to imagine people. We're going to give some thought to some way in which they're suffering. And then we're going to breathe in the suffering, and we're going to breathe out space. And important to know that when you breathe in the suffering, it doesn't have anywhere to stick. So this isn't about accumulating something into yourself. It's about realizing that yourself is already just space. And the sequence of this is usually done in the same way that metta, loving kindness practice is done. We start with ourselves, then someone that we love, then someone towards which we have neutral or very few feelings, then someone towards whom we have aversion, then all of those people together, and then kind of like everything and everyone everywhere. It's my favorite part. Just letting them all in. Like, wouldn't it be nice to just realize how big our family is? So I don't know if we're gonna go all the way through the sequence. We're just gonna see what happens together. So I invite you, if you have some kind of meditation posture that you are accustomed to, that is stable and feels healthy and sustainable, has some energy. Oftentimes we use the spine for generating energy, finding length there. This practice is generally done with the eyes closed because it involves visualization, in contrast to Zazen, which is done with the eyes open, because Zazen is just radical and total engagement with what is. I'm just going to invite you to let your attention settle in the breath, in the belly. And just notice how broad your awareness is. You're hearing sounds. With the eyes open, you could see the sky perhaps, but with the eyes closed, there's actually no limit to space, no boundary. You can keep opening to this sense of spaciousness throughout the practice. And if you have some suffering in your heart right now, you can just turn towards it. Or if you do not, maybe you could just think of something that's a little bit difficult for you right now. And I said before, you don't need to try something overwhelming or incredibly painful, but just kind of remembering or acknowledging something that's hard for you, or that causes you to have difficult feelings. And then trying to turn less from the story and more towards just the feeling itself. Things like sadness or frustration or anger. And I'm just going to invite you to just kind of imagine you're breathing in this suffering, so just letting it come really close, as close as could be to you, right into the body. And when you exhale, just notice that there's just space there. Air going into a boundless space. So inhaling whatever difficult feelings there are. And exhaling fresh, clear air that is just boundless space going into boundless space. If you'd like to visualize the suffering as being kind of a smoky thing, you can, but you don't need to. You can just let this imagining go and just notice how you are. Oh, the sensations of the body, any emotions, sounds. This practice is about developing some kindness. So as we move forward, just keep thinking, what can I do here that will be kindness? Just going to invite you to think of someone that you love in some fairly uncomplicated way. And as you're imagining them, maybe think of something that's difficult for them, about which they suffer. You've seen them get very upset about something, or who knows what it could be, desiring something they struggle to get, or envy. sadness, distractedness, anger. And just see if you can picture them. And again, turning away from whatever the story or the condition that's related to the feeling is, and just turning really towards the feeling state itself. If you're picturing this person, maybe try picturing them in your mind's eye. And then just see if you can move the image closer. Or you're just closer to the image, your body and theirs. And then, if you feel comfortable, just try inhaling these feelings of suffering they experience. And exhaling clear, spacious air which just goes into a vast, boundless space. Inhaling the suffering, perhaps visualizing it as smoke. And the suffering doesn't come and stay within the body, but just dissipates as space into space, air into air as you breathe out. Just stay with this visualization for a minute or so. Let's let the visualization go. Let the attention rest in the body, knowing the sensations of the body, any emotion that is present in you, any sounds. Now try and think of someone who you don't really have any feelings towards. So perhaps someone you have just seen recently on the street or in this building who you don't know, or someone you regularly see at a shop or in the workplace. Just a particular distinct person, but towards whom you don't have any particular feelings. See if you can visualize this person. And now we don't know their story, but it's very likely that they have some suffering. They're sad sometimes or angry or wanting things they can't get. So just imagine this person having these kind of feelings. And see if you can picture just moving a little closer towards them. With your body. And then, if it seems okay, just see if you can inhale this suffering that you imagine them to have. And as you exhale, there's just pure, clear, fresh air going into clear, fresh air, space into space. Inhaling this suffering, perhaps visualizing it as a smoky type of a substance, and exhaling pure, clear air. You can just let this visualization go and notice the sensations of the body, any emotion that is present, anything heard, anything in the field of vision, even with the eyes closed. There are visual images for those who are sighted and some who are not. I'm going to invite you to think of someone who you have some difficulty with. Please don't choose someone who you feel is doing unbelievable, overwhelming harm or has profoundly harmed you. So it's good to just think of someone who's you've been annoyed with recently or something. Or had a little challenge, maybe you're a little nervous about your relationship, so anxious. And just picture this person. And if you know some way in which you think they suffer, you can imagine that, or you can just imagine that at some point they probably are worried or depressed or enraged. Something. And just imagine them experiencing difficult emotion. See if you can picture yourself moving just a little closer to them. And then inhaling their suffering and exhaling space, pure, clear air. Letting the suffering come in and realizing it just stays nowhere. Out comes air into air, space into space. You can let this visualization go and just notice the body and the emotion. Anything else present in this field of experience. Take a moment to acknowledge that all of us in this room are breathing together. Sharing the air and the space. The air we're breathing is breathing with the trees and the grasses, all the plants, all the other mammals and reptiles all over the earth. Breathing in air that contains the moisture of the clouds, the rivers, the oceans. Taking it in and giving it back, giving and receiving. You're welcome to open your eyes, and I'll offer a bow for your practice, our practice together, and invite you to adjust your posture, just kind of reorient yourself as you'd like. Well, we all had whatever experience we had. Some people are like, I didn't notice anything. I can't visualize things. Other people, they go into outer space. Yeah, so it's amazing, the variety of our minds and how we feel. So this practice can be really helpful in You know, my favorite part of it is after we've done, we're like, oh, I'm doing the Tonglen where I breathe in the suffering and then you breathe it out. And it's like, okay, we're done doing that. Just notice how you feel. That's the practice. Notice how you feel. It's almost like you have a complicated thing to try and get you there, but actually, most people I know, not always, but if you just say, how do you feel? They'd be like, oh, I'm nervous. Sometimes like, I'm not sure. But it's actually quite possible if you don't think about it too much to just check in. And that is the practice of just being with the feeling. That's wonderful. Very natural capacity. But we can deepen it so it's just becomes like a bigger part of what our life is. So I would spend, I don't know, do I want to have less time watching wombat videos? I'm a little ambivalent about it because wombats are really cute, but maybe a little bit less time with wombat videos and a little bit more time just knowing the feeling that's here and with who I'm with and to the wider world through, I use media to understand people and to care about them. Not to become overwhelmed, but to just understand and care. So, I appreciate the opportunity to do this with you today. And it took up quite a bit of time because that was a nice long meditation. But we do have a few minutes for people to offer questions or reflections. And as usual, I'm always encouraging folks to keep your remarks somewhat brief so we can have a few different voices. If you're online, you can just unmute and speak.
Something happened to me soon after he started. I get triggered when someone criticizes me, and it seems unfair, especially if it's someone close to me. When I'm by myself, if I've gone through that kind of feeling or any other hard feeling, I occasionally touch my skin, and it calms me. And then, right away, I felt like my hand was hard and dark, like it was losing its life. So, it was a message for me, I think, to feel that stiffness in my body and have compassion for it. Not just be like the master of your body, telling it what to do and everything.
Yeah, thank you for that. This is about sensitivity. So mindfulness of body is about being in a more deep, loving relationship with the body, I think. So I thank you for that particular example of your experience. Yes, how about you first? Yeah.
When I've done this before, a lot of times it was inhale suffering, exhale loving kindness. And I always found that really hard to do. Like I couldn't make that switch around in one breath. So I really like the just spaciousness. Like that felt really natural and doable. I could go from inhaling suffering to exhaling spaciousness. So thanks for that.
Thank you for that reflection. Yeah. And cultivating particular emotional states is good, and it totally can work. But sometimes it's like, I just can't make that happen, and that can feel very frustrating. So yeah, I do love these meditation states that keep turning back to just like seeing what happens. Even when we do metta or a loving kindness practice where you say loving phrases, I tend to emphasize that then see what occurs in you. So the idea isn't to make yourself be loving, it's to see what happens if you say loving things. And something beautiful can come of that. So thank you. Thank you. I saw another hand up in the back.
You did. This might sound, I don't know, kind of weird, but I was wondering, do you think that there is like a way to have too much compassion for people where you're not then taking care, like having so much compassion for the other person that that you have like allowing and hurt almost, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it definitely does. So, yes, I think you definitely can do that. So, I was emphasizing kind of a very particular aspect of cultivating compassion here, but you know, a lot of times when we're talking about compassion in this place and elsewhere, we're talking about boundaries. So here, when we're developing this particular ability, you want to do it carefully so it's like, is this actually too much for me? Then you want to say, no, this is not a fit. So that's why it's like, don't start with some horribly evil person. That's going to be too activating probably, or someone you think is horrible and evil. So that's one component, but I do actually have an enormous amount of faith from my experience that this particular ability does not impede people to act with courage and with strength to interrupt harm. So compassion, the last talk I gave was a lot about the deep connection between compassion and nonviolent action for liberation, which are these central pieces of the Buddhist tradition. So it's kind of a big topic, but basically, you know, you can kind of trust your own experience, like this is too much or not a fit, but at the same time, have some faith that being able to care about everyone will help us all. So thank you for that. It's a rich question.
I have a point.
Yeah.
Just to the extension of what you're talking about. I think too much and too less is a scale, like with respect to something is too much or too less. It can only work if something is transactional. Like if I say that if I give you something, I get returned. So that becomes a transaction, and on that ground you can define something as much or less. But compassion is your own feeling. It doesn't matter what other person is thinking or how much it give it return. It's always about yourself. How much you think about the person or everybody in general. So when you talk about compassion, setting it on a scale of transaction is not gonna work. It's a different emotion. That's what I would like to add over here.
Yes, I think that this is what we're talking about is weirdly, simultaneously very boundaried and very boundaryless. Because we're trying to see that there's kind of no ultimate boundary between these feeling states that being experienced, and yet we're totally claiming, like, I'm just doing this. I'm just making this choice to really be here with it. So thank you for that. And I think I should probably wrap up here. It's really sweet to be here with you, and you know, I kind of brought this topic a little heavy today, maybe. So the thing is, I feel safe with the heaviness, but at least I don't know where you're living, but right now it is a spectacular spring day. The leaves are just glowing, so I hope people can let the energy of the spring's opening into your bodies. Find some way, if you can, to just open up to that. And I hope you just have some fun, because that's cool too. And if you're online and it's like raining incredibly heavily, or maybe just snowing and you're on top of a mountain, well, I hope you can enjoy the snow. That's fun too. Go skiing. So I will turn it over to our Doan. Thank you very much.